All right, today we are diving into a story that really makes you question reality itself. It's called The Zone of Indifferent Stars, and it's this incredible look at the invisible systems that define our world and, what happens when someone falls completely through the cracks. So our story kicks off with this really strange mystery. There's a building, it takes up space, you can see it, but it has no address. It exists in a gap between the numbers. Officially, it's nowhere. And this is where we meet Maren, a census worker who's just been transferred to a nameless department inside this very building. You see, Maren's old job was pretty simple. She worked for the Census Bureau, and she basically just counted stuff the state had already decided was stuff. But her new job? Totally different. Her supervisor, this cryptic guy named Greitz, tells her she'll be working earlier in the process. She's not just following the rules anymore. She's going to be the one making them. So what does she do? Well, her new task is to handle these cases, these files about people who exist in the legal gray areas. And Maren has to make this huge fundamental decision. Are these people, in the eyes of the law, actually persons? Her first case is a guy named Dolph Allender. He was born right in the middle of this chaotic government changeover. So for 47 years, he's been stuck in what they call categorical suspension. He's lived a whole life, paid taxes, got married, had kids, but the problem is to get his pension, the system has to figure out what he is. And it's got nothing. So this is where Maren has to get her head around this really crucial idea. In this world, the law draws this super sharp line between being a human being, a biological fact, and being a legal person, which is just a status, a label that the system either gives you or it doesn't. Her supervisor, Greitz, he just lays it all out there, no sugarcoating. He says, a person is not a human being. It is a status. A human being is what stands before the law waiting to be told what it is. Basically, he's saying a human is just raw material until the system defines it. Pretty chilling, right? And this is the moment it all clicks for Maren. She realizes she's not just applying some rule from a book because there is no rule. Her decision becomes the rule. She is creating law where there was none, based on her own gut feeling. And with just one sentence, she retroactively gives legal birth to a 47-year-old man. Okay, so her next case asks the exact opposite question. Sarah Velt. Now, this woman was definitely a person. I mean, she was a brilliant lawyer. But after a stroke, her legal status is kinda up in the air. So the question becomes, can this status, personhood, once it's been granted, be taken away? And here's this amazing twist. Maren's digging through the file, and what does she find? A book, written by Sarah Velt herself. In it, Velt argued that the whole idea of a capable person in the eyes of the law is, well, it's just an act. It's a performance where we all just agree to pretend that people are perfectly rational and easy to understand. Maren decides that, yes, Sarah Velt is still a person. And her reasoning is just, wow. She says you don't just erase someone because they can't make their own case anymore. So again, notice this. Her decision isn't coming from some law book. It's coming from her own moral compass. So after these cases, she's starting to see a pattern. And Maren starts to wonder, what is this place really for? What's the ultimate point of this nameless department? Greitz finally decides to let her in on the secret. He takes her down deep, deep below the building to this place called the Archives. And get this, it's a library that's somehow bigger than the building it's supposed to be inside of. And he tells her the real point of their department isn't to fix problems. No, its job is to process the system's own failures, to take in and classify every single time the state's neat little boxes just didn't work on messy, real people. And I mean, the scale of this is it's staggering. We're talking millions of files. Every single file is a life that didn't fit. A person who fell through the cracks. It's like a whole library of confessions that the system's perfect little Mac just doesn't match the real world. And this is where we get to the really dark, twisted secret of the whole thing. The system needs these failures. Greitz says, the system produces them. By defining persons, it creates non-persons. It needs exceptions as much as it needs rules. Think about that. The exceptions aren't a bug, they're a feature. They're what keeps the whole machine running. Okay, so after all this, Maren gets handed two last cases. And these are the ultimate test. They push the whole idea of what she's doing to the absolute brain-breaking limit. So the first one is a real head-scratcher. It's a case about her own department. She has to decide if it's legally real. But how can she even do that? It's a total catch-22. If she says it's real, that very decision gives it the authority it needs for her to have made the decision in the first place. It's a perfect logical loop. But she figures it out, and it's absolutely brilliant. She declares the department isn't legal and it isn't illegal. It is the boundary line itself, the thing that separates the categories. And a line can't be on one side or the other, can it? It is the one exception that makes all the other rules possible. And that brings us to her final, biggest test, the unlisted. This isn't just one person anymore. We're talking about an entire population, millions of people who for 30 years have lived completely off the grid, totally invisible to the state. And now the government wants to either absorb them or, well, eliminate them. So the system gives her the same kind of choice as her very first case, only now it's magnified 1,000,000 times over. It's simple. Are the unlisted persons or not? It's a yes or no question that could change everything. But Maren, after everything she's been through, she doesn't play their game. Her answer it shatters the entire framework. She declares that the question itself is wrong. See, she determines that the unlisted aren't just another exception for the system to file away. They are a refusal of the entire process. They exist outside its jurisdiction. They aren't persons or non-persons. They are simply themselves. Now, of course, the people in charge are going to reject this decision. A system can't admit that there's something outside of it. But what Maren did, she created a precedent, a recorded moment where someone said it is possible to refuse the system's terms entirely. And that all leaves us with this huge final question, doesn't it? This story forces us to look at the invisible categories that define our own lives. Citizen, employee, parent, consumer, all these boxes we get put in. And it makes you ask, if all of those systems of definition just vanished, what would be left to tell you who you are?